All right, let's just forget about spreadsheets and into statistics for a second. We're about to dive into a completely different kind of knowledge, the kind that gets at that one huge, all-important question, why? Welcome to our guide to the world of qualitative research. I mean, have you ever stopped to think about why a certain piece of music just gives you chills? Or what is that special something that makes a community actually feel like home? Yeah, you can't really slap a number on that feeling, can you? And those are exactly the kinds of questions we're digging into today.
So that's where we're headed, beyond the numbers. Because, to really get to the bottom of these deep human questions, you have to admit when statistics just don't tell the whole story.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Our motivations, our experiences, our cultures, all that stuff is messy, right? It's complex and it's just so rich with meaning. You can't just, neatly fit all that into a spreadsheet. So if you can't count it, how in the world do you even begin to understand it? Well, that takes a totally different approach. And that brings us right to the main event, understanding the why, because there's a whole field of study designed specifically to explore the depth of human experience. It's called qualitative research. So what is it really? At its heart, it's all about data that isn't numbers. So forget the stats for a minute and think more about things like stories, conversations, photos, even videos. The goal here isn't to measure something from the outside. It's to understand how people see their own world, to see reality through their eyes. Okay, here's probably the easiest way to break it down. You've got quantitative research, which asks how many or how much. Then you have qualitative research, which tackles that bigger, trickier question, why? It's basically the difference between knowing, say, 80% of your customers bought a product and actually understanding the story of why they felt a connection to it in the first place. Okay, so if that's the goal, how do researchers actually do this stuff? I mean, how do you even begin to capture something as complicated as a human story? Well, let's open up the researcher's toolkit and take a look. All right, to make this all feel a bit more real, let's follow a researcher, okay? Let's say their mission is to understand the super passionate fan community that's sprung up around a hit sci-fi TV show. Now, obviously, a simple survey asking people to rate the show from 1 to 10, that's not going to cut it. They've got to go way, way deeper. So, the first tool they might pull out is the individual interview. The researcher just sits down one-on-one with a fan. And this isn't some rigid checkbox Q&A session. No, it's a real conversation. It's designed to get that person's personal story. How they discovered the show, what it really means to them, and how it fits into their life. Next up in the toolkit, observation. Our researcher might head to a big fan convention. But they're not there to get autographs. They're there to watch. They're just a fly on the wall, observing how fans talk to each other, the language they use, the incredible effort they put into their costumes, all to understand the community in its natural setting. And tool number 3, the focus group. This is where the researcher gets a small group of fans together in one room. They might throw out a topic like, hey, let's talk about that insane plot twist from last season. And the goal isn't just to hear what each person thinks, but to see how their ideas bounce off each other, how they build on theories or disagree, and create this shared understanding right there in the moment. Now, here's the thing. These tools, the interviews, the observation, they aren't just used at random. They're actually part of much bigger, broader strategies, or you could say types of research. Let's look at a couple of the big ones. Okay, first up, you've got something called ethnography, and this is all about total immersion. We're talking the researcher doesn't just visit the fan convention for a day. They become part of the online forums. They join the local meetups. They might spend months or even years basically living inside that fan culture to truly understand it from the inside out. Or they could take a totally different approach, the case study. Instead of trying to understand the whole global fan base, they zoom way in. They might focus intensely on one single, really influential fan club in one particular city. And for that one case, they'll use all the tools in the kit, interviews, observation, the whole shebang, to understand every single thing about it. All right, so we've got the tools and the strategies. But this brings up a couple of massive questions, right? First, how do you find the right people to talk to in the first place? And second, once you have all these amazing stories, what do you do with them? How do you turn all that talk into real patterns? This is where we get to the story behind the data. Okay, so obviously our researcher can't talk to every single fan on the entire planet. That's impossible. So they have to choose a sample. But, and this is a really key difference from other kinds of research, they're not looking for a huge random group.
Qualitative research uses smaller, really carefully chosen groups on purpose. The goal isn't breadth, it's all about depth.
And there are some really clever ways they go about finding these people. For example, with purposeful sampling, our sci-fi researcher might intentionally seek out the people who started the biggest fan websites or podcasts. Or they could use something called snowball sampling. This is cool. You find one really dedicated fan, you have a great conversation, and at the end you ask, hey, who else should I talk to? And that person introduces them to a couple more people, who introduce them to more people, and the sample just grows naturally, like a snowball rolling downhill. But let's be real here. This kind of research is incredibly powerful, but it's not perfect. It has its own set of challenges. For one, analyzing hours and hours of interviews takes a ton of time and expertise. And because the findings really depend on the researcher's interpretation, things can get a little subjective. It's not like a math problem where there's only one right answer. And that also makes the findings a lot harder for someone else to replicate exactly. Now, good researchers have ways to deal with this, but it's just part of the deal. But even with all those challenges, the massive value of this whole approach comes back to this one powerful idea. It focuses on the why rather than the what of social phenomena. Let me say that again. It's less concerned with what happened, and it is obsessed with why it happened and what it all meant to the people who were actually there. And that really is the heart of it. Qualitative research isn't just a bunch of techniques. It's a whole way of thinking. It's about capturing the human element, the stories, the context, the meanings that shape our lives, the stuff that numbers, on their own, will always miss. It is, simply put, the story behind the data.
So I'll just leave you with this thought to chew on. Take a look at your own world, your job, your neighborhood, your family. What's a story happening right there that numbers could never, ever tell? What's the why that's just waiting for someone to ask?